everyone, how's it going? I am trying to get this video out. It's one of my most highly requested videos. I'm doing it during nap time, so hopefully Audrey will cooperate and I can get this video out to you. It's just the ins and outs of a pleater. I get asked all the time what to look for when you're buying a pleater, what kind of pleater I have. So I'm gonna go over everything I know, which I'm not a pleater expert, but I do know a couple of things after using one for a few years. So I hope it's helpful to you. First off, you're going to hear about half rows versus whole rows. So to define a whole row, I think it's about 3/8 of an inch. I'll measure, but I think it's about 3/8 of an inch, and then a half space is just that it's broken down into a half. And so when you do your garments, you gotta think of what you're going to be sewing for. If you're doing mostly infant and baby clothes, you're going to want to have all your half spaces. So don't get a pleater that doesn't have half spaces because you won't like it. Half spaces, and it's, of course, sewing is whatever you want to make it, but typically the half spaces are saved for the baby and infant clothes, whereas when you get into more child size and teens, adults even, you use the whole rows. But of course you can use half spaces if you want to, because it's whatever your look desires, you know. But typically that's how it goes. So I have the Amanda Jane. I always have to look. I have the Amanda Jane pleater. I don't have the Super Amanda Jane. I just have the Amanda Jane. And now the Amanda Jane is 9.5 inches. Like the brass rods are 9.5 inches long. So that's how much pleating space you have. And I remember thinking, okay, well, you know, back when I was buying a pleater and hadn't used one and didn't know how many rows I'd need, all that sort of stuff. Well, can't you just have your pleater, run your fabric through, and if you needed more rows, run your fabric through again? And technically, I guess you could. You'd have to pull out an enormous amount of thread because you'd want your fabric to be flat again so you could roll it up on the dowel before you run it through the second time. So that's one issue. The other issue is that lining up, not only making sure those rows are parallel to each other, but also lining up your starting position. So that means all your needle piercing the fabric, all your little where it's actually going to pleat out your fabric are in line with each other. It's going to be very hard to do, and if you don't get it just right, your pleats are going to look crappy. So I would say no. I would say if you really think you're going to be using more than 9.5 inches length of pleater, I would say go to the Super Amanda Jane or go to a bigger model, because you're really not going to want to run it through it twice. 9.5 inches is pretty long. I've pleated dresses up on this thing for myself. You know, 9.5 inches, it'll go from like my sternum to my belly button, and I'm 5'6", so that's a good amount of length. Like I said, if you think you're going to be doing longer stuff, get the Super Amanda Jane or get a longer model, whatever. Those dogs. Now that being said, I don't really know too much about the different brands. I am thoroughly happy with my Amanda Jane, and I've heard other people say the same thing. But as far as, like, you know, the Reeds, the Stanleys, the Martha Pullens, all the other brands, I don't really know too much about them. I will say, when you're looking for a pleater, two things in mind. So first off, you want to make sure you have enough rows for what you want to do, and if you want to do baby stuff, make sure you have half rows. Secondly, make sure that, what was I going to say? Mommy brain. Oh, make sure you can find needles for your pleater. I have not bought needles since, knock on wood, since I started pleating. It's been like 5 or 6 years. I was still in college, so it's maybe been 6 years or so. When I started pleating, I actually ordered my pleater off of Craigslist. I say ordered, like, you know, they have a plethora of pleaters out there on Craigslist, but no, I bought mine from a woman off of Craigslist. But so when you're buying your pleater, make sure that you can find needles for your pleater. I have heard, and I haven't bought needles in like 6 years, knock on wood. I have heard a lot of women gripe about needle quality these days on the different, you know, groups and stuff online, that the quality has gone down. I guess maybe they're not hardening the needles like they should be. At any rate, the needles are getting really brittle and they're breaking. And at $2 a pop or so, you know, that adds up, and it gets really frustrating to have a needle break on you. So that's one thing, is make sure you can find needles. And I've heard that you don't necessarily need to have the name brand for your pleater. You can have generic as long as you have all the same needles, but you can't kind of mix name brand with generic. That's just things that I've heard of. I haven't actually tried that out because I got lucky, and I've been lucky, and I'm hoping not to be jinxing myself right now, but I haven't broken a needle in a very long time. So moving on, the other thing you want to look for when you're buying a pleater, there's something else I was going to say. Okay, I remember. So the Amanda Jane pleats very evenly, meaning the space between where the needles are piercing the fabric on the right side is the same as where the needles are piercing the fabric on the wrong side. Now there's a saying out there, the long is wrong, meaning that there's not the same distance between where the needles are piercing the fabric on the right side versus the wrong side of the fabric. And the long is wrong is trying to refer to the long distance, I guess, of between the needles is on the wrong side of the fabric, meaning that you have to be careful and be aware of how you roll your fabric up on your dowel and how you're feeding it through the fabric, or through your pleater. Since the Amanda Jane pleats very evenly, I don't have to worry about that. I just roll it up, and if it's right sides up, okay. If it's wrong sides up, that's great too. That's one less thing for me to think about, and that's wonderful because, as you're seeing, my brain doesn't always work with me. The other thing I would say is about buying one. I don't know if Farmhouse sells them or not. As you know, Farmhouse is like my favorite store ever, but I don't know if they sell them. I don't think that they do. I bought mine before I knew of Farmhouse. I remember I was sitting in vibrations class, an engineering major. I was sitting in vibrations class. I think I was in my junior year, maybe it was my senior year, and I was like sitting there not paying attention on Craigslist trying to find a pleater. So I bought mine used, and I would say I don't have any reservations about buying one used versus new, because basically, I mean, you've got you've got 4 brass dowels, which, yes, brass is a softer metal, but you're feeding fabric through it. So I mean, as long as they haven't, beaten it against the wall or something, done something stupid with it, it's going to be in good condition, I would say, because how do you mess up brass dowels on fabric, So anyway, you have your brass dowels. These are what the needles look like. They're kind of like a little squiggly thing. So I wouldn't have any reservations buying them used. And I would say if you're getting one used, depending on the brand and whatever, a reasonable price is about $150, somewhere in that range, I would say is reasonable. And if you're buying one new, you're going to be more $250 or $300, depending on what you get. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is my pleater box. So I'm going to take my pleater off. This is something that I made from a thread organizer I bought at Joann's. Make sure to have a coupon because everything's overpriced in that store. But I made this just by taking a soldering iron and getting that hot and just poking holes through the plastic. And it may not be the most pretty thing in the world, but it functions just fine. The only thing that I would say that if you're doing one of these, and I should just sit down and do it, I just haven't done it. I just haven't done it at the time. It's one of those things you forget about until you pleat, and then you're like, well, I'm pleating, and it just never gets done. Is I would add like a strip of wood or plastic, something. I would just add a row of something here so it blocks the pleater, because as you're pleating and you're pulling your fabric through, your pleater will move on you. And so if you just have like a strip of wood or something there to hold it against, then it won't move, past that strip there. That makes sense. I do have a video on how to pleat, so if you're interested on that, I'll link it below. I hope it was helpful for you. Like I said, when I was looking at buying a pleater, I was just like, I couldn't wrap my mind around how they worked or what the half space was or what a whole space. I just couldn't figure it out, and it seems so simple now that I've been doing it and I have one in front of me. So hopefully this is helpful to you. Okay, so if you have any questions, just hit them in the comments below and I will be happy to answer them. I much prefer that as opposed to like a private message, because then people can benefit from you asking the question and me answering the question. But yeah, I hope it was helpful. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching, and I hope to catch y'all next time.